absolutely influence everybody in your circle to focus more on the positive. Okay, so we have a responsibility as influencers to change the narrative. We really need to focus on what's the creative, what's the creative. One second, I'll mute everybody. So we have a responsibility to change that narrative and to focus more on the positive, because there is amazing opportunities that are abound around us right now, and most people are focusing on the doom and gloom. So if we continue to focus on the doom and gloom, anxiety is going to be on the increase. It's going to keep going up and keep going up and keep going up. So let's change that together. Okay. So I just wanted to share some techniques and a little bit of information with you guys personally to be able to focus on anxiety for yourself, as well as any other negative that's surrounding you, as well as um, some techniques to be able to influence others around you to be able to reduce their anxiety as well. So as leaders and as influencers, it's our job to be that calm for people. They're looking up to us. In fact, Paul Meyer, our founder, says it very simply. There are three things that people need. And that is, they need something to believe in, someone to believe in, and someone to believe in them. So we're in the midst, like I said, in a situation where people have a hard time focusing on anything except for watching the news. And every time I watch the news, it seems like the period of time that we're sort of left in the lurch is extending. I'm hearing things like, July, August, and things like that now. Obviously, we know that if we unite and all work together, that we would absolutely be able to kill this thing by the end of April. It's just there's half the people that are out there that aren't taking it seriously. And we know that COVID-19 is not the end of the world. Things will go back to normal eventually in the near future. It's just at the same time, we do have to take it seriously, work together, and influence people to say, as much as I want to give you all a hug, right now might not be the right time. Right? I want to, I promise, but we'll give you a virtual hug for sure. So keeping that distance and just sort of following those instructions and not going out unless we need to. If we do all those things, this thing will be all over by April. And there are a lot of people that are nervous about business and things like that. So one of the things that we do in this office is we work with a group of high school kids, and they're all really creative kids. We take them through a program called Attitude is Everything, which is it's a leadership development program for young adults. And I put the question to them the other day, and that was, what do you see as an opportunity in this situation as opposed to the doom and gloom? What's the opportunities that you see? And they came up with a really cool idea. There was just one that we discussed for sake of time, but they said if you were a restaurant owner and in the midst of this and you had to shut down, then keep your kitchen staff on and turn your waiters and waitresses into delivery people, right? Like maybe they only have 80% of the business or 75% of the business that they had before, but it's an opportunity for them to pivot slightly and actually move towards something that's creative and innovative. And statistically speaking, 60% of Fortune 500 companies actually were created during a recession. And the main reason for that is because when things are tough, that's when we start to think solution oriented, right? And we all know this, like this is not rocket science. So right now is the time for us to think, okay, what are new ways for us to actually take advantage of this situation as opposed to waiting for it to be over? How can we change the way we do things, right? And I'm hearing a lot of people saying, I'm getting sick of Netflix. Well, I have no doubt that that's true in some cases, but there are also a ton of people, probably those same people, that say, I just don't have time to go to the gym. Before all of this happened, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to get out and do this and that and the other thing. Now is the time to form some of those habits, to actually form, you get up at the beginning of the day and you start working out. That will last after this is over. You will be forming that habit. So that becomes part of who you are. So talking about anxiety is simply something that's created when we feel a lack of control. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why anxiety is on the rise. So when we feel like there is a lack of control that's causing anxiety, the only way to change that, as you can quite imagine, is to actually take control. Okay. In a world right now where routines don't seem to be happening, the best thing you can do is to create a routine, right? Be very specific throughout the course of the day. Start the day with a routine, and it could be something very simple. You know, Jim Rohn used to say, start the day by making your bed. Simply that one little routine will start you on the right foot, the right path for that day to feel like you're being productive. And it doesn't have to be something, like I said, it doesn't have to be world-changing habits that you're creating. Just think about it in terms of making sure that you feel like you're always doing something as part of your routine. And when you do that, you're creating that routine on a daily basis. You're reducing your anxiety, right? Because you're taking control. You could take that a step further and say, okay, 6 to 8 weeks from now, this is all going to be over. Where will I be between now and then? I have 6 and 8 weeks, or 4 weeks, or 3 weeks, or whatever it ends up being. I have a whole lot of opportunity here to actually become more of the person that I want to become, right? A lot of people have books that they bought 6 years ago that have been sitting on their nightstand, and they're saying, you know, I'm getting sick of Netflix. Now is the perfect opportunity to pick those books up. Or maybe there's a skill you wanted to learn, or you've always wanted to learn how to play guitar. Or more importantly, a lot of us, right? And I'm sure most of you can relate to this. A lot of us have a hard time when things are busy and normal. We have a hard time slowing down and actually spending quality time with our family. In fact, that's probably the number one personal goal that we hear, other than fitness, that we hear at LMI, and that is to live a more balanced life and to actually spend more quality time with family. Now that we have more time with family, we still don't understand the difference between quality and quantity. It's the perfect time for us to actually say, okay, well, what does quality time even look like? Now I'm going to start to form habits that will last long after things go back to quote unquote normal, right? Figure out what that quality time looks like and start doing it, because you now is the best time, more time than ever. Mark Cuban, I don't always agree with everything that comes out of his mouth, but he's a billionaire in the States. He owns the Dallas Mavericks, which is an awesome basketball team. He said something recently that I think is brilliant. He said, now we are in a position better than ever in history to reconnect with people. We can't necessarily get together and hug one another, right? Social distancing. But the technology that we have at our fingertips gives us such an incredible opportunity for us to reconnect with people that maybe we've lost touch with, whether it's family, friends, clients, otherwise. There is a ton of those individuals out there that you have been putting off connecting with. Now is the time just to reach out. And what better way to start a conversation than to say, hey, how you making out? How are things in your world right now with all that's going on right now? You don't even have to think about what conversation you want to have. We already know what we want to ask people. And I challenge you, again, the best way to change the narrative from negative to positive is to ask people what the advantage is. It's called a switching question. A lot of people will say, oh my gosh, I don't know when this is going to be over. I'm laying off all of my staff, doom and gloom, I'm scared, all those kind of things, which are all relevant. I don't want to belittle those in any way, shape, or form. But the best way for you to actually impact somebody very quickly to start thinking more on the positive side is to ask them, okay, well, what's the positive? What's the best thing that's happening right now? What are the advantages that you can take advantage of right now, right? Other than catching up on your favorite shows on Netflix, right? Which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying if you're doing that all the time, then maybe that's not as productive as you could be. So all of you have people that look up to you that have anxiety right now, right? There is a level of uncertainty out there, from the length of time that this is going to last to, whether or not they're going to get their job back, or whether or not their job will even exist afterwards, and so on and so forth. All of those kind of things are creating uncertainty and some anxiety around people. So some techniques about that would be asking them where they want to get to. Okay, same thing, helping them create a routine, giving them an opportunity to create a routine, come up with creative ideas to take advantage of this situation, will dramatically drop people's anxiety. Here's the interesting thing too. When we're not in a situation like we're in right now, there's already anxiety because people feel a lack of control. Now that's just amplified, right? Most people have no idea what they want to do with their life. So identifying a set of goals for them to be able to work on in normal times is exactly what empowers people in the first place. So now more than ever, sitting down with people and saying, okay, where do we want to get to? Let's create a routine. Let's create some habits, right? And like Paul Meyer said, I told you there's those three things: something to believe in, someone to believe in, and someone to believe in them. So let's break those down just really quickly. And I know I'm not speaking rocket science. You're all thinking there's no way that it could possibly be this simple, but it really is this simple, okay? In order for people to feel engaged and successful, they need those three things. And the reason for that is the most important thing in the world for somebody to feel is important, right? We all want to feel important. We all want to feel like we're making a difference. So something to believe in. Yeah, it is simple, just not easy. Exactly. So the something to believe in, that's the vision. That is the, am I part of something bigger than myself? Am I making a difference in the world? Am I a part of something that is not just my own creation, but is actually impacting people, right? That's the something to believe in. Everybody needs to feel like they have something to believe in. People don't work for a company long-term, fully engaged, if they don't feel like they're making an impact, right? People need to feel like where they're working and who they're working with actually is something that drives them to be more impactful on the world, right? They need to be a part of a purpose. The purpose needs to be bigger than themselves. And usually it is about helping others, but it's some sort of derivative of helping others, right? How do you want to change the world? How do you want to impact the world? Someone to believe in. People need to look up to you. People are looking up to you, and they're looking to you, again, for that sense of calm and for that sense of purpose, right? Taking on that responsibility, even though you're feeling a level of anxiety, for you to take on that responsibility to try to calm others, I can promise you that will impact you just as positively, right? If you are leading by example, and people don't learn from what they hear, they learn from what they see, just like children, right? Kids learn by watching their parents and by watching their friends and by watching their teachers, right? All these people learn, all these kids learn from watching. So, and so do adults. So everybody that you're influencing, they're learning by watching you. So by being the example and creating a daily routine and being very specific about your daily routine, you will actually make people feel calm when they look at you and say, okay, I want more of that. I need to feel that routine. I need to feel like that is my life. I want to be more like that person, right? So by you setting the example and being the example and having that kind of routine and challenging people to have a routine, right? Absolutely challenging others. So if they're feeling a sense of anxiety, sit down with them and saying, okay, where do we want to end up at the end of the day? Where do we want to end up at the end of the week? Where do we want to end up at the end of this pandemic? Right? That sense of calm will start to come over them. And realizing that we're all in this together, I want you to think about that too, right? So many people are terrified. I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, but you have to realize that the landlords are also in this situation, right? Everybody is making adjustments, right? And everybody can work together in this situation to smooth out the anxious times. And the third is someone to believe in them. By you sitting down with people and encouraging them and spreading the love, as we like to say, right? By spreading the love and encouragement and throwing all of the things that you love and are grateful for about the people that you're influencing and that you're surrounded with, will also lift them up. I just want you to imagine everybody has a tattoo on their forehead that says, make me feel important, or MMFI. right? If you can imagine that tattoo on everybody's forehead, and you take on the responsibility to make sure that every single person that you bump into feels important, that sense of calm will actually come over them when they're around you, and they will be drawn to you, right? If you realize that you have that much influence over people. I say this all the time, leaders can change a person's life with one sentence, right? Whether it's positive or negative. If somebody looks up to you and you say something extremely negative and critical towards them, you can change their life forever. You can also change their life forever if you say something positive, grateful, and encouraging to that person. And maybe they've never had somebody that they look up to so much encourage them in the way that you did. And when you do that, it automatically starts to change their life, and their self-esteem and self-worth will start to go on the rise, right? Incredible stuff, right? One sentence, think about that. One sentence can change a person's life. That's a lot of responsibility that you have, right? But I think each and every one of you are capable of taking on that responsibility. So help people understand and believe that you believe in them. Help people believe that they are a part of something bigger than themselves. They have a greater purpose, and help people believe, by being the example, help people believe that you are the leader that they want to follow, right? When we are a follower, it is very easy for us to identify the leaders that inspire us. But sometimes when we get into the leadership role, we forget about the things that inspired us from the leaders that have led us in the past. And we start thinking more of systematic and management. Focus more on being the example, right, that you remember that inspired you so much. So anxiety is caused by a lack of control. So taking control is a way to reduce anxiety. Creating a routine on a daily basis. Those same kids that I was telling you about, the ones that are still very sane because they've been in quarantine now for 2 weeks, are the ones that have a daily routine every single day. They get up at a certain time, they eat breakfast at a certain time, they work out at a certain time, they go for a walk at a certain time, they read at a certain time, so on and so forth. The more focused you can be and more habitual you can be when it comes to your routine, the more you will feel like you're in control, right? And encouraging others to do that. So yeah, being the example. People's calm depends on us. Let's change the narrative. The doom and gloom out there in cyberspace and on television and everywhere needs to change, and it's really up to us. We can impact ourselves first, impact our family second, our work third, and our community and beyond, simply by starting with ourselves, right? This is 100% in our control. In fact, the foundation of personal leadership is personal responsibility. So taking ownership of exactly where we are and where we're heading is exactly what will give a sense of calm for everybody that we're influencing. Okay, I'm going to unmute everybody. Just take me a second here. I would love to hear some additional insights from you guys about how we can change the narrative, how we can create a sense of calm, and how we can impact the community and the communities that we're a part of in a positive way.
I'm reminded of when the tsunami hit years ago, and Elizabeth Gilbert had shared pictures of one of the waves coming in and making cars float away, making the buildings float away, make everything float away. And the next video was of a man surfing away from the tsunami. And at that time, she said, this is an exact example of what is going on in business. And I relate that to what's going on now, where the same wave is coming over all of us. So are we going to harness that wave to make changes and to ride it through and to make it better? Or are we just going to be swept away by it?
Yeah, absolutely. Turning, as Paul Meyer always said, which is not an uncommon statement, turning lemons into lemonade. There will always be lemons, big lemons and small lemons. What's the ability that we have to turn it into lemonade right now? And if you, it's an
And also, as you said, you know, it's a serious situation, and not to downplay all of that, but you know, if you keep focusing on the negative parts of what's coming out of it, then the energy gets shifted to fighting something as opposed to creating something, which is where the abundance and the opportunities lie.
I love that. I couldn't have put it better. It is a different level of energy, and it starts with your attitude, right? If you have the attitude of abundance, there is always abundance. If you have a poverty mentality, then there's never enough, right? So if we focus on the opportunities that are in front of us and change the narrative to that from an opportunistic perspective, then that's how we will approach everything in life. And that's really where the lemonade comes from. So a great, well, thank you. Anyone else? Ideas for reducing anxiety? What are some of your techniques to reduce anxiety, especially in the midst of something that's uncertain?
I've been practicing just over communication. And so there's really not enough times that I can just be emailing all staff, speaking with different groups, and really just trying to make sure that everybody's in the loop. Because I find that typically when the anxiety rises, especially amongst our staff on the front lines, is when one person knows something and the other doesn't. And then that makes them question what the truth really is. So daily communications going out to the teams, as well as spreading any information that comes our way to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely love that too. Yeah, communication is key to reducing anxiety, simply because if we don't know and we don't know something, that creates uncertainty as well. I don't know what the next move is going to be from the organization. Makes me scared for my own position, and so on and so forth. So you can't over communicate in a situation like this. Everybody, there's nothing to hide from people. We're all in this together. So well said, Mark. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, so I have a point. So there's two of the EQ competencies which are really relevant here, and they're navigating emotions and exercising optimism. Yeah. And so the reason why is that, like, optimism is like your resiliency factor, right? And so it's affecting how much of daily stressors you're actually dealing with. And I mean, it's not crazy to think that your ability to see good futures has to deal with how hard each stress of the moment is hitting you versus how much you're like, no, we can handle this, right? Right. And then the other one, navigate emotions. So I think we're starting to tap into this when we say turn lemons into lemonade, but it's basically our ability to explore and adapt and remain kind of practical and effective, even when our sense of agenda is shot. And so, like, that's kind of what's going on. It's like everyone's kind of way they were thinking about their business model doesn't really work. And so it's hard to, maybe I should say, we're out of practice exploring and finding new ways to kind of do it. And because linear business as usual is not working. Anyway, so like these are the two things we're trying to kind of practice and build up. And so I guess it's, in some sense, it's kind of related. Navigate emotions has kind of a sense of curiosity. How do we explore and find something that would actually work, which is kind of relating to it's like, how are we pivoting and adjusting our business model so that we can do something, which, you know, back to the first point of saying our optimism doesn't need to be blind. It's just, you know, this is our resilience, and then this is how we're going to adapt and change and, you know, become better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. There's so much opportunity for us to look at it, depending on the angle that we want to look at it. And one of the conversations that I have with many adults, many leaders, is how creative are you? And it's incredible how many people will say that I'm not creative at all. And they automatically think that I'm not a painter, or I don't play an instrument, or you know, all those kind of things. That's kind of what we relate to being creative. And that's not the only way to be creative. And when we were 4 years old playing in the backyard and we were king of the hill or queen of the hill or whatever it was, you know, in our minds, that's exactly what we were. We were the knight in shining armor or whatever. So our level of creativity is very high. It's just that we haven't accessed that level of creativity in so long because we get in patterns of conditioning. So it's times like these that any one of us is capable of incredible mental creativity and innovation. It's just that we have to access that, which we haven't really asked ourselves in ages to access. But there are a ton of companies, think about this for a second, there are a ton of companies that are growing right now as a result of this scenario, right? Amazon, for example, is hiring 100,000 new people, right? So obviously they were already set up for being a major supplier in a situation like this, because they sold time before all this happened. That was their job, was to sell time. So no one had to go to the mall. They could just sit at home. And right now we're forced to sit at home. So Amazon obviously is going to grow. But every single one of our situations has a creative turn that we can take in order for us to take advantage of this and be innovative, and to actually look at ways of growing business or personal life or relationships or whatever it happens to be. It really just is the lens that we decide to look at the whole situation through, right? Accessing that creativity that's in us all. It's Paul Meyer used to say this as well. He used to say there is no dogma, creed, religion, or group in the world that will draw a thing to you that your thoughts repel. And your thoughts will repel anything that you can't see, believe, and put down in black and white. So if you, I say this all the time, if you believe that you're a loser, but you want to be successful, guess what's going to happen? You will repel success because you are convinced that you are not worthy of success. So we've got to change our inner narrative to one that we deserve success in order to accept success in the first place, right? We have to, see Karen. Karen's got to take off. We have to be able to change that narrative, and you can't think positively and negatively about the same thing at the same time. So the only way to disperse negative thoughts is to fill it with positive, and that's why I say use switching questions. So if somebody is really, really negative in any situation, ask them, like they say, "Oh, I was cut off on the way to work. My life sucks. This and that and the other thing." If you ask them what's the best thing that happened today, they will always have an answer to that, and you'll see their demeanor change, right? And that's something that we can all do using switching questions, right? So anyway, awesome. Yes, thank you, Robert.
I get a comment on perspective, and when you talked about you can't think of positive and the negative. Can you hear me okay? This is the first time I've set up this laptop.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
About positive and negative, I find it really weird. As Steve knows, as many business owners, I suppose I'm the only one that ever suffers from anxiety in business at all, as this whole group.
No, you're not.
But I found it oddly, almost eerie that during this whole situation, my anxiety level is the same. It actually seems more calmer because I know exactly what I have to deal with, as opposed to the dynamic that's in our regular business. It's, stuff coming at you left, right, and center. At least we know we're hitting this straight on.
Yeah.
What I've had a hard time compartmentalizing, you talked about negatives and positives at the same time. I'm used to driving down in a half-ton truck where I've only got one emotion sitting with me at any given time. Apparently now I'm driving a minivan and I got all these emotions that are in the van with me at the same time, and they're all trying to fight for a moment of my time, or my attention. And what I'm feeling now is, you talked about family life and what to do, and as I think I mentioned to Steve, I picked up a keyboard prior to this all happened. I said, I'm going to learn guitar. I made a soft goal of it. Well, I'm so happy I picked up a keyboard because that's one of my godsends. My boogie woogie's coming along really good. But it's weird. I find I'm troubled with guilt almost about the family time, enjoying nature, hearing the birds singing, the quietness of the city. Like, even though we have this crazy world going on right now, I find I'm always feeling guilty about the family time and nature and my time and doing things. It's weird. We're all living what we've kind of strived to create, even through like our LMI doctrine.
Yeah.
But creating time. Dun dun dun. See, that was my piano there. Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody else is having that weird kind of conflict of ideas, that it's, you enjoy the time off, but you're conflicted about having the time off. You're enjoying the the nature time, the sitting outside, just sitting. I've never been so happy to be piling wood as I have in the last week.
Why do you think? Why do you feel that guilt is something that you're stricken with in this situation?
I think it's such a shakeup. It's almost, as business owners, we don't think that we deserve to have the time and it's always two ideas working against, work, make sure the system's working, our systematic approaches changing all the time in all our businesses. We're always, that's where our attention goes right now, because it's a linear one item, safety of our staff, making sure our product is still our product in place as an essential service, and making sure that's all there. Then after you set up all that, like, I don't know, like even me trying to lead by example, I'm here every day, but I won't stay all day because I want to lead that, it should be just, if your product's done, if it takes you an hour to get your product done at the shop or in your respective business, then you should go home right after. There's no reason to be in a place.
But your guilt is something that is inner. The circumstance is something that is outer. So you're feeling guilty for a circumstance that's out of your control.
Oh yeah. Well, there's two me. There's logical me and emotional me.
Right.
These two talk to each other.
And that's what I'm pointing out too, is if you know the logical and the emotional in this situation, it doesn't make logical sense for you to feel guilty about something that you are not in control. And I understand why you feel that way. It's because it's almost like a break from reality that you're enjoying, but you shouldn't enjoy it because there's a rise in anxiety around you as well. And everybody else is feeling more anxious and you're on vacation. That's kind of what you're saying to yourself, right?
My anxiety levels here most times anyway, it's just everybody's coming up to me.
Yes.
Everybody was down here before, all the line staff that just, what do I do? I don't know. They tell me what to do all day. So now they don't know what to do. Nobody's telling them what to do. And now their anxiety is coming up to here.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like a regular Tuesday.
So thinking about this, because you said something interesting. You said your anxiety is almost coming down a little bit. You're almost feeling like it's a little bit more calm. Why do you think that might be? There is a direct correlation with your level of calm.
Because I have control. It's weird that I have control over, more control over my situation. The control, be it limited on, I guess you can still be in control and fiscally be losing at the game at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm in control as much as I can be of the operation. That doesn't mean we're going to be turning big profits this year or profits period.
Right.
I think right now it's about mitigating loss.
Right.
Is the game right now is what was it? A friend of mine always says, fill in the holes in the boat. Right now we got to make sure there's no more extra holes that shouldn't be there anyway, and fill the holes you can.
So the interesting part about this, and for all of us actually, is, again, Derek is basically saying he knows exactly what he needs to do, right? He's decided, he knows exactly, it's filling the holes in the boat is his job right now. And because that's so simple and so clear, his level of anxiety is going down. So how can you, and I'll throw this back at you, Derek, because I think it's interesting, how can you give that sense of calm to your team?
Well, that's another thing with me being here every day. It's so that I can engage my staff, even if it's just for the half hour. Like, we're a skeleton crew right now. But I'll tell you, even, it's funny, you read all the books, you take all the courses, you do all that, and you don't always get to put the application as much. Like you said, oh, someday I'll use this, or someday I'll use that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, over the last 2.5 weeks, it's been it just seems like I've been kind of referencing, and even, they're part of your psyche every time you read this self-help book or that book, or how to deal with staff, or art of communication, or, the art of war, who knows, all these things. It's weird how they just kind of roll out now. And it's almost like I've been carrying around this toolbox.
Yeah.
And just recently I've been able to actually implement. And I think, it almost creates a validation. I almost feel like somewhat validated that, hey, there was a crisis, and we're doing okay. It's weird. Again, there's those two emotions again. Logics, and you shouldn't feel okay. You shouldn't feel happy that you managed it okay, because people are going to die. Dun, 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 and all that.
Yeah. Right. Well, but you were ready, and I would point that out to everyone here too. I would say, listen, you've all handled crises before. Maybe not like this, maybe not this one, but you've all handled crisis, personal crisis. You've all been through things where you've had to learn, and maybe you've been in a crisis in the past that you didn't handle well. That's possible. But those are the scenarios that you learn from to say, okay, the next time I'm in this kind of situation, I'm going to be better prepared, or here's how I would shift or pivot to do a better job. Or like Mark said, over communicate. I didn't communicate enough the last time, and that caused a lot of people to be terrified. And I know for a fact that I have to communicate more now as a result, because that's exactly what I would want if I was on the other end of that email or of that phone call, that kind of stuff. So you are more prepared to handle crisis than we give ourselves credit for. And it's okay to be okay with that. For you to actually say, listen, I'm handling this situation pretty well, that is a validation. And you should be okay to give yourself a pat on the back, right? A question that
imposter syndrome.
It's the imposter syndrome, exactly. Yeah, when I
just less
quite often,
out of it.
Yeah, quite often I'll ask people a question, what's your greatest strength? And people will have a hard time answering that question. But if I said, what's your greatest weakness? They'll come up with 5 or 10 easily, right? And the main reason for that is because we're so primarily focused on correcting the weaknesses that we have instead of utilizing the strengths. And we don't want to compare ourselves to others, because if we compare ourselves to others, that means we're bragging, right? I don't want to say that I'm better at this than you are. We automatically downplay our strengths, right? And Paul Meyer says that this is a mistake. We should be focusing on our strengths. You know, if you handle pressure really well, that just happens to be one of the skills that you've developed. And I say it that way specifically on purpose. It's a skill that you can develop like anything else when it comes to leadership. It's all a developed skill over time with practice. If that's something that you are great at, then it is something that you should utilize when necessary, right? And focusing on those things, and not focusing on the self-criticisms, focusing more on the areas that we're strong and being confident in those areas, right? And when we succeed, but we have a belief that maybe we shouldn't have, or we don't deserve to succeed, it actually prevents us from focusing on, the success, and we continue to focus on the failures or the weaknesses, right? We really, really need to change this narrative in the Maritimes too. I was speaking with a CEO in Halifax not too distant past, and she said that here in the Maritimes, which I love this, she says it in one sentence, here in the Maritimes, we play not to lose instead of playing to win, right? There is greatness here in the Maritimes, but we will ignore that greatness in the name of politeness. And, you know, I'm playing not to lose, but I don't necessarily want to beat you, right? That kind of thing. So we forget that comparison is the only type of competitiveness and comparison should be who I am today versus who I can be in the future, instead of me making sure that I'm better than everyone else. And being proud of your strengths is not bragging. For me to actually walk into a room and say I'm great at something doesn't mean that I'm better than all of you at it. It simply means that I know that I'm great at something, and maybe you're better than me at that same thing, but it's okay for me to be proud of that as a strength for me, right? In the Maritimes, we got to really work hard on pulling people up with us, and it's easier to be pulled down than it is to be pulled up. So we've got to work really hard at pulling people up with us and focusing on our strengths. So Derek, I know that was a bit of a rabbit trail, but that Derek gave us a really good topic to focus on, right? There's some guilt creeping in and things like that, because he tends to focus more on his weaknesses, right? Which is where that anxiety comes from in the first place. He's trying to fill in some of those holes. And I'm not just speaking about Derek, I'm speaking about all of us, right? Focusing on trying to fill in those holes as opposed to being congratulatory to ourselves and confident that we can actually make a difference in this world, right? So anyone else have a technique or an idea? Yes, Joanne.
Maybe just on that note, actually, one of the things we noticed early on with staff, so we're helpers, and there was a period of time, those first few days, first week, where some people on our team were really struggling with not being able to help because they couldn't go out.
Yeah.
They couldn't go, their work is face to face. So I the thought sort of came to me that there are situations where some people are really comfortable and calm in a crisis like this, and their strengths come to the forefront and we can use those. And then for others, they've got to maybe, this is not where they shine. So we've got to be patient with that, and they've got to be patient with themselves. So we took out we all do the strengths finder when everybody comes on, when we onboard someone. We get them to do that, and I keep that so that I know who I can pull in for certain things and who to put on which teams. So we got staff to review that. I felt that that might be a calming or centering exercise for them, just to go back to what your strengths are, and in this situation, what are some things that you can do based on your strengths. And we did the same thing with we have a little leadership team. And it was a really good exercise. I think maybe it gave people a little bit of confidence back in themselves, and just had them look, just sort of take a minute out of the chaos and have a look at who you are and what your strengths are, and then how are you going to, with what's going on ahead, what role can you play, and you know, how can you get through this using your strengths, basically.
Absolutely. Have you found that utilizing your team strengths in these types of situations has provided a sense of calm amongst the rest of the team as well?
Totally. We did this so we have staff meetings twice a week by Zoom.
Yep.
So we've been able to, like, there's that same guilt where I should have my shit together. This is what I do for a living. Like all of these helpers.
Yeah.
I should not be freaking out right now. But so it was a good time just to have the conversation openly and honestly that no, not all of us are going to be okay in this, but you can help here, or you can do this, or when I need this, I'm going to call you. So that it gave everybody a place to fit in, I guess, or be utilized for what they're best at. Yeah.
Absolutely. People want to feel important, right? You're making people feel important by helping them utilize their strengths. It's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Something that you said too, I just wanted to comment on the someone to believe in and something to believe in. We've noticed a significant difference between messaging coming from our federal government and messaging coming from our provincial government in terms of just help and resources.
Yeah.
Early on, the messaging was, we're going to take care of you and you're going to be okay, and you know, don't worry about things, take care of yourself, from the feds. And that was a really important message for me to hear, because I could relay that to the staff, and our funders immediately all came out of the gate and said, don't worry about things.
Yeah.
You know, the money will keep flowing, you're going to be okay. So that was a game changer for staff. So that's kind of a lesson that I've taken from this. Like, the first thing people need to know is, no matter what, they're going to be okay. Things are going to look different.
Yep.
We might struggle a little bit, but in the end, we are going to be okay. Yeah. And it just, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Paul Meyer said that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think Michelle said it really well earlier, and that is, you know, when it comes to it's an attitude. It's either poverty mentality or abundance mentality.
Yeah.
And we can encourage the abundance mentality. Yeah, you know what? There may be days that we're going to struggle. In fact, there will be days that we're going to struggle. In fact, those days that we struggle are actually the way that we can gauge the days that we need to celebrate. Because if every day was the same, we would never know what success looks like, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
this is the perfect opportunity for us to be creative and really impact people from an abundance perspective. Like, thinking about all of the greatnesses of, and this is going to be over in a short period of time. Whether it's 3 months or 3 weeks, doesn't matter. At one point in our life, we're going to look at it as a blip on our entire life map. But we can look at it as an opportunity for us to grow, or we can look at it as an opportunity for us to wait, right? And Tony Robbins says, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think this is the perfect situation for us to look at that, to say, how do we move forward in this situation and create that abundance mentality, right? And Joanne, you're having that impact on your team, of course, giving them opportunities to succeed. So I love it. Michelle, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just from the last speaker, Joanne, I think.
Yes.
Her speaking reminded me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That we can't move forward unless we have safety and security. And I think we often forget about that base of that triangle, and we want to provide all the things, and we get into the consumerism and the all of the flashy stuff. But if people do not feel safe and secure at the very root of who they are, then they're not able to deal with anxiety. They're not able to deal with opportunity. They're not able to shift their mindset, because the worry of not being in that safe space is just all consuming. So I think one of the opportunities and blessings that is coming out of this situation is that people are being forced, quote, to really get back to what's important. We have our house, we have our food, we have our community. We're not able to reach out and touch them physically, but we are creating more. There's been more Facebook and Zoom meetings like this that I've seen in the last year. People coming together that have no connection, but are realizing that we are all ultimately connected. So thank you for reminding me of that, that base need for everyone to be able to feel safe and secure, to be able to move past that.
I'll add to, like, one of the other motives for doing that is everyone has a family at home that they've got to take care of. Plus, selfishly, we also have clients that we need to take care of. And so it's important that the staff are in a good mind space so that they can continue to serve the people that need to be served. It's also kind of ironic. This is a pandemic is the great equalizer. Because this is the world we live in every day, people not knowing if they're going to have housing, if they can pay their rent, if they can eat. And I wonder, I wish I could have a conversation with the folks in the shelters to know if they're even aware of the buzz that's going on out there about a whole other level of people, a whole other level of society having those same fears right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you said that, Joanne, because I'm actually doing one-on-one video calls with each of our shelter guests every day. And
are you?
Actually going to, I have one right after this, and I'm actually going to ask that question, and I'll what the response is.
I don't mean in a like na kind of
No,
way.
I
It's
agree.
just like just how does I hope that it gives them a sense that they're not in this alone, and that it's like maybe it'll reduce some of the stigma. I don't know.
Yeah.
I agree.
Great, or create greater understanding of the situation, what people are dealing with. Every day they're dealing with a scarcity mindset. And so decisions aren't, we often criticize decisions that are made around how they spend their money. But when you don't have any, and you don't make the same decisions as you would if you have a lot of money, obviously. Same as us with our time.
Yeah.
That's what we suffer with scarcity with our time. So we often make poor decisions. Should I work or should I be home with my family? Well, I got to get this work done. And if I get that done, then I can go home. And we often make the wrong decisions from the same scarcity mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. that scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset is, again, it's like anything else. It's something that we have to learn, right? And you've been conditioned with scarcity mindset for 22 years or whatever it is. It takes a lot of work to turn that around, for sure. But it's absolutely possible. But it is going to take a personal decision, personal responsibility for people to get there. And I know you're impacting people that way all the time. So one quick question that I'd love to get some answers from all of you, because I think all of us either know somebody or actually employ somebody that has to be laid off, or at least for the short term. So let's talk about how can we encourage, how do we speak to those people? How do we communicate with those people right now to make sure, again, that we're pouring in the abundance, but also pouring from a positive perspective, some of these decisions that have had to be made. And maybe it's not somebody that works for us directly, but somebody, you know, a friend of yours has been laid off. How do we address that? How do we talk to those people? How can we be encouraging? I'd love to hear some thoughts from you guys to be able to pour into those people.
I'll just quickly say both my son and my daughter were laid off of the jobs that they were in. My son works as a cook at a company, but he works through a temp agency. So when the kitchen was shut down, his contract was finished.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the upside of that was because his contract was finished, he was able to access his vacation pay, which was put aside, and could then be paid out to him. So he had that money coming in, and then he was able to apply for EI, and then his tax return just came in. So the timing of all of that, kind of like each week, he's had some money coming in, and he's been able to balance that off. So again, you know, the thing that we think we're in control is just, again, how do we react to the situations that come forward?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And Derek, you had an answer to that?
Yeah, obviously I'm in construction and service. Even though my service department is running right now, we've laid everybody off and they're running like a split 2-day shift where they can hopefully get their 8 hours. So you can always declare 1 day of work every week is what we're doing. And it was the decision of either keep 2, then they work all the time, or or run a split shift where they can kind of keep and I let my staff come up to I kind of floated some ideas and I didn't dictate anything. I let them come to like most of them came to me and said, yeah, no, I'll take my layoff. I'll take this, it was about engaging my staff and being completely truthful about the situation. No sugarcoating, no, oh, we'll be back next week or anything. Right. I think you have to be brutally honest, and actually be beyond brutally honest, that you have to look at the worst case scenario. Better to give them that expectation than come back on it. The reason I chose to have to keep most people on, like they had the option. Some people took full layoff, went home because they have families, or the other partner was an essential service individual. Whatever. I think what we got to realize in this affair is everybody's different on your staff. All your line people are different. They all have different needs and requirements in their own home lives, and you have to accommodate that. There's no one answer to fix it all. Mm-hmm. But I think what was really important for me is to keep them engaged with this place. Mm-hmm. This place, most of my people are lifers. I laid off people, last week that have been never laid off for 18 years. Yeah. But they agreed that the layoff is the best thing. Some of them are paid by, an hour worked is an hour paid. So it was better off to lay them off and let them get some hours. Mm-hmm. What I would say, and it's not exactly on the layoff thing, but it's another comment that I want to make. Again, it's these ideas that are kind of fighting each other. And I always, there's always that quote, never let a crisis go to waste. If you are looking to initiate any systematic change within any of your organizations, right now you can cut, they always say this, the 7-year rule to change any organization, to turn it around or do anything. I think you can cut that to about 6 months now if you want to change any systematic things in your organizations today. The way you do business, the way you communicate with the public, the way you operate, this is the time to do systematic change, because all them the chains of change that that you're always fighting against with any of your staff, they've all been severed at the moment.
Mhm.
They have nothing to hold on to, and anything you give them as this is the way we're doing business today, or this is the way we're doing it going forward, I think it's, you got to see some opportunities.
Mhm.
And I don't think, even though it's a crisis and you're seizing the opportunity, as long as you're being classy about it, and it's for the betterment of anything, and you're not being a nefarious, or what is it, Ford said, a bad actor of the situation. Like, you can take advantage of the situation and not be taking advantage of the situation.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
that's my quick comment.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. There's creative ways for us to grow right now. We have the opportunity to grow for sure. We're coming up on 10 o'clock. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I just want to say one quick thing, just to quickly recap some of the things that I talked about at the beginning. One is we need to change the narrative. We need to focus on the positive instead of the negative, right? The doom that we're seeing out there, let's focus on the positive. The waiting, let's be creative. And the stopping and moving backwards, let's be innovative. There's opportunities for us to do that, okay? The three things people need, remember this is Paul Meyer, one of my favorite quotes. He says that people need something to believe in, someone to believe in, and someone to believe in them, right? That includes you, right? We're not just talking about the people you influence, that includes you as well. So ask yourself, do you have all three of those things? And if you don't, which one is missing, or which two are missing, and what can you do to actually fill in those gaps? And the people that are feeling the most anxiety, it's likely because of one or more of those three are missing in their life, right? And that may not be anything to do with the current situation. That could be an everyday scenario, right? The third thing is anxiety. What causes it is a feeling of lack of control. So in order to reduce your own anxiety, take control, create routines, right? Impact people, influence them to take routines. If you're seeing your kids with anxiety, help them build a routine on a daily basis so that they can actually feel like they're more in control. And when we feel like we're more in control, our anxiety subsides substantially, believe it or not, right? And then the last thing is we are all influencers. We're all leaders here on this call, right? We're all part of this community and beyond. And I really, really challenge you, because people are watching you and they're listening to you. I challenge you to be the example, right? It is really up to us to impact our community, to pour and pump love and positivity into the community and not preach the doom and gloom that's out there. And it's a daily decision. We have to wake up every morning and say, today is going to be a positive one. And despite the fact that I might be feeling a bit of anxiety, I'm going to pour love and support into the people around me. And that will change the way you approach everything in that day. And you will notice, I can promise you, even if you're focusing on just one person, you will notice that impact that you're having on that individual, right? And if we all work together, this community will come out of this stronger than ever. It is a short blip on the radar that we are going to take charge of, and we're going to kick some butt. And the abundance that's going to be on the other side of this is something that we can't even imagine yet, because it's so great, right? This is an opportunity, as Mark Cuban said, for us to connect with people that we haven't connected with in ages. Take that opportunity. Even think about it, creating a Zoom meeting with somebody that you haven't spoken to in years, right? That you've been putting off for ages. Take that opportunity and just reach out to them and see how people are doing. Before I let you all go, we have basically 1 minute left. Any additional advice or comments that anybody would like to share? And I would like to know if anybody has an idea of a topic that you'd like us to focus on for next Friday's session as well, because we're going to be, like I said, be doing this every week for the next 6 weeks. So what is a topic that you'd like us to focus more time on next week? And hopefully you can all come back. So any additional comments, thoughts, comments, concerns before we call it a day?
Well, I could make one.
Sure.
So, I mean, Hemingway used to say one of his go-to strategies was grace under pressure, and never would that be more true in these circumstances. I think you can look at, again, our business, we deal with crisis fairly frequently. It's almost an overused term, but I like to think of crisis as an opportunity on the tail of a dragon. In a crisis situation, people listen differently. You can reach them in a different way than you can in perhaps normal circumstances. So if we can use that to our advantage, we can make some connections. And as you said, that we might not otherwise be able to do with whether it be clients or with some of our staff members. Steve, you said that, I mean, when we look back on this, this is going to be a blip on the screen in terms of our life journey. Absolutely correct. But I think people will vividly remember how their leaders handled themselves in these circumstances. And then they definitely need someone to believe in and someone to believe in them. We can be that influencer.
Love it. Well said, Mel. Couldn't agree with you more. Anyone else? No? Okay, so I would love for everybody, we're going to set it up so that we can have you all back. Plus, feel free to invite more individuals. I know we had about 45 that were interested in today, and obviously several of them couldn't make it. We had some emergency meetings being called and things like that. Please send in your topics. We will research, we will bring some information to the table, and we will share it with you. Anxiety was today, but there's many more things that we need to discuss in the coming weeks. So I just want to say God bless all of you. Thank you very much for stopping in, and let's be the example, and we're in this together. So let's do it together. All right. If you guys need anything from us, please feel free to reach out at any point in time, and hopefully I'll see you all next Friday at the same time. All right.
Can we do the Brady Bunch thing where I go like?
Yes, absolutely.
Good night, Marcia.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. All right.
Thank you for having a reference point the same as somebody of my age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those two. You gotta look out for those two.
Yeah. Everybody have a great week, great weekend, and thank you for stopping in.
Be safe.
Thank you, Steve.
See you, Steve.